Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well. My name is Douglas Mello, and today I'm going to be presenting you guys a quick summary about the book that I read this semester titled Are You Talent Obsessed? Unlocking the Secrets to a Workplace Team of Raving High Performers by Beth Armnecht Miller. So, a little quick overview of kind of the book and the author. So, the author is actually the founder of the Executive Velocity in 2006 company. In 2014, she then published this book about Are You Talent Obsessed? And in this book, she really emphasizes the fact of the impacts of leaders of HR and how they impact the organization as they control the backbone of the company. As she emphasizes their importance, Miller pushes these leaders to convert their leadership styles into talent obsessed mindsets, right? So, with talent obsessed mindsets, organizations are bound to excel with time as leaders now spend extra time hiring the right people and ensuring these employees are performing at their best qualities. So, we kind of already seen this before in the semester. So, we talked a lot about strategic staffing and training and development, which is something that Miller really emphasizes throughout this book quite often. Right, so let's really dive into the book now and the whole point of the book. So, what does it really mean to be talent obsessed, right? So, to be talent obsessed means that you really realize that the spreadsheets, projections, and the bottom line are all important indicators of the organization's success, while also realizing that the core of the company that drives sustainable success and long term growth is the talent among the staff that you have hired, right? So, you got to focus on the foundation first and then everything else second. If the employees aren't good, the business won't do well. You need the employees to be sustainable, to be reliable, for the organization to excel. They're the ones that, operate the system. Now, there are three major components that Miller emphasizes that why everybody should be talent obsessed. And these three components consist of strong talent means excelling growth. I think that's very self-explanatory, as we all know. Hey, if you have a good team, good team, high work ethic, and they're just motivated and want to keep going, obviously you're going to see a higher productivity rate compared to others that show lack of willingness to do the job. She mentions not being talent obsessed. She mentioned not being talent obsessed means lack of dedication in developing in your employees to perform at their full potential. This in turn leads to the downfall of the organization, right? So basically, if your employees aren't going to be dedicating 100% of themselves, they're basically wasting up space. If you as a leader aren't going to take the time to actually train these employees, work on them, make sure that they're doing their job the best they possibly can, and you just let them carelessly work just to be employed, just to say that you have your space occupied, the organization is going to not succeed. We're going to decline. All right. And also, you want to make sure that you're developing on these talents. You're going to actually be working on these people. You don't want to let people just taking up space, because what's going to happen is people that don't want to work are going to end up leaving. And when people end up leaving, that is going to cost the company a lot of money. So she also emphasizes that being talent obsessed will help keep talent, So she mentions that having to replace employees constantly can cost the organization up to 90 to 200% of employees' annual salary. Meaning, organizations are emphasizing too much money or using too much money to replace these employees rather than keeping them. So it would be beneficial for both productivity rate, financial reasons, to just make sure that everybody's getting the proper training that they need, in order to succeed, right? So with the proper training comes high productivity rate, stronger work organization commitment, and yeah. And then lastly, another reason that Miller emphasizes on is employee engagement boosts productivity. So when you're talent obsessed and you're taking the time to actually develop your relationship with the employees and actually going to personally yourself, talking to them, engaging with them, such and such, people actually end up liking their job a little bit more because they see that their job actually cares about them, right? And we're going to actually talk about this a little bit further in the next slide. Now, being talent obsessed means that you're going to be constantly engaging with your employees. It is very important that you're going to be engaging. And what I mean by engagement is defined as emotional commitment that an employee has to the company, its goals, and its mission. We kind of talked about that in class, but I'm gonna get to that a little bit later. But what do I mean by that engagement part is, as a leader, you're constantly emphasizing to the employees why they're there, why they're valued, and what they're working towards. Like, what's the company's missions, what's the company's, and because you're constantly going over with the company's missions, the company's objectives, and such with the employees, that constant engagement actually leads to a higher organization commitment with between the employees and the organization, which ends up making them stay a lot longer than they normally would have if there was the lack of engagement, right? And that's actually something that you want, especially if you're like, the employee is talented and they're actually bringing a good amount of productivity to the organization, good amount of energy. You want that relationship because you want them to stay. You want them to actually like their job that they're working for, right? So that is why engagement is very important. Also, engagement also helps keep employees on track, right? Emphasize the objective and their importance of the role, as if I haven't mentioned that before, right? Acknowledge their achievements and productivity. This is going to boost their morale of the job. They're going to be like, wow, this organization really like values me, really like sees how good I'm doing. They notice me. Every time we get acknowledged for the good work that we do, I know we all get a little cheesy inside. We get a little warm inside. So that is something that everybody, like, it's just a human nature. And, just giving those little comments, those little, like, thumbs up, it really goes a long way, and it really helps build that organization commitment that everybody wants, right? And also this engagement, you also need to kind of be asking, hey, like, do you have all the resources that you need, right? Engagement ensures that all employees have all the resources that they need in order to perform their position well. And that's something that they value a lot. Now, another thing that Miller likes to talk about throughout this book is time management, right? With engaging with employees comes proper time management. You got to make room to have coachable moments. Coachable moments meaning three different categories, right? So you have daily coachable moments, basically when you walk around. Something that we also kind of talked about in the semester, taking the time to come in a little early, or like making some time in the day to actually go ahead and see your employees and give a little hi, like catch up with them, build that small personal relationship just so they could feel like they have access to somebody in the higher ups if they ever need, right? This builds up people being comfortable with the communicating. They know that, like, hey, like, they're being, like, I don't know, not watched, but like presence being known. Like, they're like, oh yeah, like, I actually know the guy from up above, so like if I need anything, I know who to go for. I know, like, I could talk to him, like he's my friend. Like, you want to build that personal relationship, right? And also during these daily engagements, you could also be like, hey, like, keep up the great work. That will also boost their morale to continue increase productivity, right? If there's any tweaking that needs to be made, you could also do it during the daily coachable moments, where you could be like, hey, like, yesterday you hit this number, like, you've been doing this number in the past. Yesterday you kind of slacked a little bit. It would be nicer, or like not nicer, but we should strive to hit this. Or is there something wrong? Did something go wrong? And then, that communication could help, that day or that week be better. Another coachable moment that you should be having as a leader that Miller emphasizes on is weekly team meetings, right? And these team meetings, though, typically organizations have like, oh, this week we did this good or we did this bad, right? Miller tries to emphasize something that is different than that. She basically tells us that we should not be spending time on talking about the good and bad, but really express the learning experiences that we learned throughout the week, right? So from the daily coachable moments, leaders are typically educating their employees on like how they could improve, right? That's kind of the whole point of the daily coachable moments. But Miller wants everybody to express what they've learned that week that other people may not have known in the past, so then they could continue using that throughout the next following weeks as they keep working, right? So For example, if somebody learned a technique to make a process faster, they're going to share that with the team, and then the team are going to start utilizing that process, and that is how productivity increases, right? Because they learned a new technique, the job became easier, they liked it, and so on and so forth, right? So that's something that needs to be like more emphasized in weekly team meetings that Miller sees that companies now lack in. It's going over basically lessons instead of taking the time and saying like, hey, we did this good, this bad, and like basically lecturing, which we shouldn't be doing. Lastly, Miller also emphasizes that we should be doing monthly one-to-one meetings with our employees, right? So what she means by that is have a sit-down moment with said employee, well, each employee, right? And then go over their performance, their attendance, like how they did that month, where they could improve on, where they did really good on. You know, you can't always just talk down on the employees and break them down, because that's going to like lower their morale and discourage them in a way, right? So you kind of want to just give criticism, critical, what's the word? Constructive criticism. Brain fart. But yeah, you want to give like a constructive criticism just so employees can know like where they did good, where they could do better, and what they should be doing moving onwards, right? And also in these monthly meetings, you should try to set a goal for them to be able to like reach by the next meeting, right? This will give them something to work for, something to like, strive to hit. And there could be even an incentive like at the end, like a little bonus or a little prize or something like that. And also in these monthly meetings, you need to be going over how you're doing as a leader. It is not always going to be about you talking to them, but it's going to be a conversation that's two ways. So you need to ask, hey, have I provided you with all the resources that you need? Is my management style a little too harsh for you? Like, do you feel comfortable working in this organization? Like, am I doing anything that's like bothering you and stuff like that? You need to have an open door policy with all employees. Make sure that they're all comfortable with everything. Lastly, I want to point out though, a lot of the times people get the misconception of, oh, you got to spend time with the lower performer employees. That is not the case at all. Miller also emphasizes throughout the book that you should be spending time with both high and low performers. Why? Because the high performers could always be using room to grow, and low performers also, of course, they're low performers, so they need room for growth, right? There's always ways to improve both. But high performers are not perfect people. There's always ways to do a job different or better. Sometimes high performers could use a little tweak. And, if high performers are not receiving attention, right, and only the low performers are receiving the attention and development that they obviously are in need of, the high performers may feel a disconnection between themselves and the organization, which could break their organization commitment, which is something that you obviously don't want, because then you're going to lose them to the competitors, right? So you got to make sure that you're spending the time with both high and low performers, and not just the low performers, which is something that's like obvious, but the high performers are something that like people tend to sleep on, like people tend to not give too much attention to, which needs to be changed according to Miller, which I agree with. In this light, I want to kind of go over questions that I liked that Miller said that all leaders should be like asking themselves, right? So here she says, you should be asking yourself, are all your employees working to their full potential? There's going to be times where a good employee is having a really bad week, and you want to ask them why, what's going on, and you kind of want to get to like know what the problem is and how you guys could fix that so they could start performing back to their normal pace, right? Because you don't want that employee to be lacking, and then that's going to take away productivity from the organization and probably from them too, if depending on like how the pay structure is, right? Another question she asked is, who needs more training and developing? Like I said before, she doesn't only emphasize that on the lower performers, but also the high performing people, right? I work in sales. I work at a kiosk. My high performers also need training. My low performers obviously need training. Like, these questions aren't only just catered towards the lower end people, but also the higher end people too, because there's always tweaks that could be made. Another question is, how much of your time is spent on developing your team members? Moving on, how often are your employees' performance being reviewed? Are meetings regularly scheduled or just when needed? Like I said before, Miller emphasizes that we need to have weekly meetings, not only to go over the good and bad of what's been going on, but also to share what we've been learning throughout the week so we could all perform better and grow as a team, right? How much time is being spent with high performers versus low performers? Miller emphasized that a lot. It can't be just one-sided towards the lower performers. I think that's a given that, like, obviously you're going to spend a lot of time with low performers, but you need to give time to high performers people too. Another question is, what is the most recent example of a coachable moment you had? Right? If you cannot answer that question and give an example of a recent example, it shows that you are lacking in your leadership skills or your leadership position, and that needs to change. What is the proof that your leadership style is effective, right? What she's asking for in that question is, are you really engaging with your employees? Are you asking them for feedback? You need to be asking them for feedback so you can know what direction you need to take in order to make them content with you, right? And then the last question that I really liked from her was, what are the next steps to help those who needs more development, right? Now, it's gonna get a little awkward. I'm sorry, Professor. But did I like this book? Would I recommend this to others? Out of 5 stars, I would give it a 3. I don't think I would recommend this book. Well, it's debatable and arguable. So with my experience in my HR courses, I feel like I've learned a lot of this before in the past, and another reason that I wouldn't really recommend this would be because of how repetitive the book was, with the key points such as meetings, engagement, and training development. Like, I understand that was a really big major point, but Miller does a lot of repeating herself. Like, it was just rewording. Unfortunately, that's how I saw it, at least. But for somebody that didn't take the HR classes that I took, that might need like a little bit of a leadership change mindset, maybe I would recommend this book for somebody that's already in HR, that's had a couple years, not couple years, but let's say 5 to 10 years out of school, and they just need a little reminder of what a good leader would look like. Because I do agree with a lot of the points that Miller said. I think just in my position now as a student, as I'm currently learning about all of this, it's something that wasn't too new to me. But I still think that all of the points that she said were really good, were things that needs to be emphasized and should be practiced in organizations. So that's where she gets the 3 stars from. As a student right now, she loses the 2, but this would be a 5-star book for somebody that's not taking the HR courses at the moment and is already in the HR position. They need this reminder because, like I said, like Miller says, the weekly meetings should not be about the pros and the cons. It should be about the learning experience. Of course, talk about the pros and cons of the week, but the learning experience, I really like that point, right? Because I do believe that the team will benefit a lot from it. Second, the engagement. I really liked how she emphasized how employees should be engaged with their leaders, or vice versa. I meant leaders should be engaged with their employees. This will make the employees feel more closer to home. They're going to enjoy work a lot better because it looks like their organization cares for them, right? And this also helps the organization because you're always emphasizing what they're working towards. Everybody will know, hey, I'm doing this for this reason. And if they're a true believer of that, they're going to enjoy coming into work more because they know they're coming in for the greater reason, right? For the greater purpose. Now, something that I kind of questioned, was kind of iffy about, was when Miller tried to talk about, she tried to talk about how you should bring in a third party to analyze the organization, and this could be a competitor too. The thing that I don't agree with too much about that point of view was how if you bring somebody that's third party, how would they know, like, the ins and out? They never been there before. They don't know how your company works. They don't know like the policies and all that stuff. So if they were to come in and you tell them like a brief summary of everything, and then they give an opinion, their opinion might be unbiased, which is something that you would want for improvement, but it's also like they don't know the full context. They don't know everything to really make a judgment, right? It's like a relationship. If I'm having a relationship problems with my significant other and I bring a third party into it, they don't know how my relationship dynamic works. So how can I really trust their judgment? And for the last slide for today, we have how this book related to our course, right? This book really tied into the course, and like kind of how I said in the last slide, how I feel like I didn't really benefit too much from this book as a student right now, because I feel like I learned a lot about this in talent acquisition, right? Um, so Miller emphasizes a lot of things about strategic staffing, pardon me, understanding the business mission, training and development, and interacting with employees. I remember Professor would always emphasize how you should take the time to actually walk around the organization or the company and greet your employees, like talk to them, emphasize like hey, like you've been doing good, stuff like that. So Miller emphasized that in class. We talked about that a lot. So um, that's something that I saw the connection in. Strategic staffing, we've been talking about that throughout the entire semester, how it is very important to actually take the time to understand what the company needs, what the organization needs, and hire according to their needs, right? And hire selective staffing. So you can't just hire just anybody. You gotta hire people with high KSAO, right? Hire talent, higher work ethic, and if you spend the time dedicated to, really building that core, that foundation, that staff, right? With that good staff, you'll go a long way because you took the time and dedication to actually invest in good employees rather than hiring just to fill spaces and have a high turnover rate later on, which is only going to cost you more money in the end. But if you actually, invest in your employees, train them, develop them, make sure that they're well informed about everything that the organization stands for, make them true believers of the organization, make them engaged, make them actually like coming into work, make it a good, positive workspace for them. They're going to stay a lot longer, and that's going to bring in high productivity from the employee and for the organization. And that is really it for my presentation, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you guys have a good day.